3 months after my wife Sophia disappeared in a skiing accident, I saw her in a bar. She was leaning on the shoulder of her male best friend David, smiling wantonly. "Thanks to your advice, otherwise I would have almost forgotten what freedom feels like," her coquettish voice came into my ears. Her girlfriends poured her glass after glass of wine, and someone asked, "When will you show up?" She lowered her eyes and thought for a moment, then said, "Maybe in a week, when he's really going crazy looking for me, I'll show up again." I stood in the dark, watching her enjoying her so-called freedom to the fullest, feeling mixed emotions. I immediately called my friend who worked in the household registration department and decided to cancel Sophia's household registration and stop looking for her. The story is about to begin. If you like it, remember to like and subscribe. On the other end of the phone, my friend asked hesitantly, "Are you sure?" I looked up at Sophia, who was nestled in David's arms. My eyes were sore and my voice was choked. "I can't find her." What's the point of finding someone who wants to hide? After hanging up the phone, I turned back to the box. Mark, who grew up with me, saw that I looked gloomy, so he stuffed a glass of wine into my hand and said, "James, Sophia has been missing for 3 months. There is almost no chance of survival. You should come out." I lowered my eyes to look at the highly concentrated foreign liquor in the glass and swallowed it in one gulp. The spicy taste instantly brought tears to my eyes. I suppressed my heartache and asked Mark, would someone pretend to be missing to deceive her husband? He looked at me with dismay. "What nonsense are you talking about? Anyone who can do this is a beast. It's better for him to die." I wiped my tears and picked up the coat on the sofa. "You are right. I should let Sophia go." After saying that, I turned and left and returned home. The house was as quiet as usual. For the past 3 months, I was terrified of such silence. Every time I went home, I would turn on all the lights, make a cup of Sophia's favorite coffee, put out her favorite fruits, and pretend that she was still at home. I didn't understand why she pretended to be missing in a skiing accident. If she didn't want to continue living with me, she could just divorce me. Sitting on the sofa, I picked up the cute dolls of the two of us on the coffee table. Once, Sophia leaned beside me, pointed at the 2 little people and said with a smile, "When I'm not around in the future, let them accompany you instead of me." But now, the sweet words from the past overlap with her irritable complaints in the bar today. "James was fine before, but after we got married, I don't know why he wouldn't let me drink or eat cold food, and he kept meddling in everything. It was really annoying. I faked my death this time to teach him a lesson, so he won't have to cause so much trouble in the future." David beside her poured her a glass of wine and said, "I'd rather be the best. We've been best friends for so many years, and I've never done this before." Yes, you are my best male best friend." They talked in the name of best friends, but their legs were intertwined. Thinking of this scene, I felt nauseous. I threw the ornaments into the trash can and picked up my phone to send a group message. "Sophia died unexpectedly 3 months ago. The farewell ceremony will be held in a week." Immediately afterwards, Sophia's besties sent a series of questions. "How can you hold a funeral when the person hasn't been found yet? James, are you crazy? What if Sophia is not dead? If Sophia comes back and sees her own funeral, she will be furious. James, think carefully, do you dare to make Sophia angry?" I didn't reply to the first few messages, only the last one. "The person is dead, why are you still angry?" After saying that, I threw down my phone and went to pack up the things Sophia left at home. In the past 3 months, I have basically been searching for her in the city where she skied, and I seldom went home. Except for the bed, there were basically no major changes in the bedroom. I opened the closet and was stunned. More than half of Sophia's clothes in the closet were gone, and the ones left were basically those that she couldn't wear this season. My tears fell instantly, and I laughed at myself. In the past 3 months, in order to find her whereabouts, I basically lived in the snow-capped mountains. I only went home to have a good rest when I couldn't bear it anymore. But Sophia came home several times to take her things when I was on the verge of collapse. I turned on the surveillance at home, called up the surveillance footage from the past month and accelerated the playback. At the beginning of the month, Sophia walked into the house holding David's arm, and left 2 hours later with a pile of clothes. In the middle of the month, Princess David came back holding Sophia, and left at dawn the next day. The night before yesterday, the 2 of them went home under the cover of darkness, and left yesterday morning. These days, I was searching for Sophia's traces in the nearby city. I cried as I watched, not for Sophia, but for myself. It was not worth it to sacrifice everything for such a disgusting person. While I was sleepless all night worrying about her safety, she was staying at my house with her male bestie, and might even spend the night in my bed. I clenched my fists and tried to control myself. After a while, the phone in the living room rang. I was in no mood to answer it, but the person on the other end of the phone seemed to be unwilling to give up until I answered, and kept calling. I took a deep breath, walked to the living room, and was stunned for a moment when I saw the caller ID, and quickly answered, "Aunt, what's up?" "Sophia is not dead." Then, she sent me a video. I clicked on it and saw Sophia and David drinking wine together. Their eyes were so sticky that they seemed to be able to pull out threads. My breath stagnated, my fingers kept shaking, and my words trembled. "I know she is not dead." The person on the other end of the phone seemed a little surprised, then laughed. "Then you are still preparing her funeral?" Everyone told me she was dead, and I believed it, so I should prepare her funeral. Olivia was silent for a moment. "Widowed?" I said, Olivia is Sophia's non-blood aunt, actually 1 year younger than Sophia. I have very few interactions with her. She was the first person to reveal to me that Sophia was not dead, and I owe her a favor. I said calmly, "Aunt, if you have time, you can come to pay your respects in 7 days." The person on the other end of the phone simply responded, "Okay, I'll be there for sure." Then, Olivia sent another video. Someone next to Sophia showed it to her on their phone. She slammed her glass, and David was startled. Then he put his hand on her shoulder and stroked it, as if he was saying something to comfort her. The bar was noisy, and I couldn't hear clearly, but I saw Sophia's expression instantly eased a little, and she even buried her face in David's chest. Sophia must have been furious because of the message I sent to the group, but I didn't expect that David's few words would calm her down. You know, in the past, when she got angry with me, she would always let me reflect on myself for a night and then apologize to her before she would reluctantly forgive me. I closed my sore eyes and saved the 2 videos. Just as I was about to turn off my phone, David called. I answered the call, and the loud music instantly exploded in my ears. David shouted, "James, you want to hold a funeral for Sophia? Are you crazy? I tell you, cancel it now, or you will be in trouble when Sophia comes back." Before he could finish, I turned off my phone, grabbed a blanket and slept on the sofa. This was the most peaceful sleep I had in 3 months. The next morning, I took my documents to cancel Sophia's household registration. After completing the cancellation process, I went to David's house. David's door was closed. I rang the doorbell again and again before I heard the door open. He was wearing a bathrobe, leaning against the doorframe, and the traces of ambiguity spread from his neck to the area covered by his clothes. David looked at me and shouted angrily, "James, why are you in my house?" I moved my gaze from his neck to his face, met his disdainful gaze, and said calmly, "I hope you can attend Sophia's funeral. After all, you are her good friend." David glanced at me and said disdainfully, "James, you are Sophia's husband. She is now missing and you don't even bother looking for her. You are even holding a funeral for her. What if she is not dead? Aren't you just cursing her to death? Is there any husband like you?" I took out the death certificate that the household registration department had just issued from my bag and chuckled. She was buried in the snow for 3 months. I couldn't find her, so I canceled her household registration. Didn't you persuade me to get over it? When the bad news came, I fainted, and it was the next morning when I opened my eyes again. All of Sophia's girlfriends gathered around my bed, saying, "Brother-in-law, the place where Sophia disappeared is very dangerous. It's hard to find her. Why don't you just give up?" Yes, that place is so dangerous, we really can't go there." I struggled to get up, bought a ticket, hired a search and rescue team, and ran into the snowy mountains. For a full half-month, I searched for her without sleep. At that time, I didn't notice why the eyes of Sophia's so-called good girlfriends didn't show any worry, but only teasing. As soon as I finished speaking, a loud noise came from David's room. His face changed and he threatened me, "James, don't do anything stupid, or I won't let you go when Sophia comes back." I pretended not to hear anything, just like I did last night. David glared at me fiercely and slammed the door. The quarrel in the room reached my ears. I heard that the household registration was cancelled. Sophia finally couldn't hold back any longer, but I couldn't let her find me. She had been missing for 3 months, so it wouldn't be too much for me to be missing for a few days. I carried the suitcase I had packed in advance and asked Mark to use his ID card to book a hotel for me for 7 days. In the past few days, apart from buying funeral supplies, I stayed in the hotel. When Mark came to see me, he said with a gloating look on his face, "I heard someone is looking for you like crazy, and is about to turn the whole New York upside down." I looked at the missing person notice on TV, curled my lips and said, "What if it's turned over? If I don't want her to find me, she can't find me. She showed up when she said she wanted me to look for her like crazy, so why can't she hold back now? She deserves it. I don't know why there are such vicious women in this world." He got more and more angry, so I quickly stopped him. "Stop cursing, my wife's funeral is today, you should be sad." I went to the bathroom to look in the mirror without washing, deliberately creating a sad and decadent look. After confirming with Mark that I looked very old, We rushed to the funeral together. On the way, I handed Mark the USB drive containing the video of Sophia still alive and asked him to play it according to my instructions. After doing all this, I sent a group message to the funeral address. The first to arrive was Olivia. She got out of the car in a black dress, walked up to me, took a white silk flower and pinned it on her sleeve, and said in a serious manner, "My condolences." Then came a group of relatives and friends who didn't know the truth. Their grief came from the heart, and it made my heart ache. "Sophia, you pretended to be missing and hurt so many people's hearts. Today, you have to pay it back little by little." Next came her so-called besties. Their faces were uglier than each other, and they were trembling as they took the silk flowers from my hands. Until someone finally pulled me aside and said, "Brother-in-law, stop it. Sophia is not dead at all. She has been looking for you like crazy these days. Didn't you see the missing person notice on TV?" I blinked and squeezed out 2 tears with difficulty. "Don't comfort me. David posted the missing person notice. The dead cannot be resurrected. I won't hold on to the hope that she is still alive." She wanted to say something, but I winked at Mark and Mark quickly pulled her to sit down. Seeing that most people had arrived, I stood on the stage and adjusted the microphone. "Thank you all for taking the time to attend my late wife's funeral." Before I could finish my words, I was interrupted by a low growl. "James, are you crazy? I told you Sophia is not dead." David stood at the door, staring at me fiercely. "Are you her husband? Sophia has been missing for 3 months and you are holding a funeral for her without even finding her. I won't allow it." I looked behind him, but there was no sign of Sophia. At this point, Sophia still refused to show up. I looked down at David and said coldly, "You don't allow it? Why don't you allow it? You also said that I am her husband." David's eyes widened, tears welling up in them. "How can you be so cruel? Sophia loved you wholeheartedly, and you just said she was dead. What if she wasn't dead?" My eyes fell on the strawberry mark on his neck and I smiled. "Even if she is not dead, a cheating woman is not worth my time and energy." After I finished speaking, I asked someone to pull David aside and continue to preside over the funeral. Just as I was about to speak, a shabby, skinny man appeared at the door. She stood at the door and choked up, "Honey, I'm not dead, I'm back." Sophia walked towards me quickly, hugged me tightly, and called my name tremblingly. "James, you don't know how much I missed you." I fell down while skiing that day and had several fractures on my body. Fortunately, a kind person sent me to the hospital, and I rested for 3 months before I could come to see you. I'm not dead, look, I'm fine. She took my hand and groped her body up and down, as if to prove that she really came back after her life was hanging by a thread. I just watched her acting with a cold eye. When she finally felt embarrassed, I laughed out loud. "Have you had enough of acting? Is the man who kindly sent you to the hospital called David?" Sophia's expression froze inch by inch. She moved her lips and forced a helpless smile. "James, what are you talking about? I don't understand." I looked at Sophia's face pretending to be confused. I couldn't suppress the grievance and anger of the past 3 months anymore. I slapped her in the face. "You've been hiding for 3 months. Why don't you continue hiding? Didn't you say you would show up when I was crazy looking for you? Now I'm not crazy yet. Why are you showing up?" Sophia looked at me blankly. "How did you know?" I smiled. "I know a lot more." As I said that, I turned on the big screen behind me. Originally, the big screen was used by the family of the deceased to show the photos of the deceased. Now I used it to show videos. The video of Sophia and David drinking in the bar, the video of her bringing David into my house several times, and the video of her walking out with David's arm around my arm after I left David's house that day. Sophia looked at her clear face in the video and her face turned pale instantly. "How did you know? Who told you?" As she spoke, her eyes suddenly became fierce, scanning all the people who knew about it. "Did you say that? Are you deliberately destroying my and my husband's family?" The people Sophia scanned shook their heads one after another. Sophia then turned to look at me and said, "Honey, I don't know who sent you these videos. They must be fake, synthesized by AI. I love you so much, how could I betray you?" Sophia took out an amulet necklace and said, "Look, I still remembered to bring you a gift." I looked at the necklace without saying anything. My friend found the video of the bar, zoomed in on David's neck, and projected it on the screen. It was an identical amulet necklace. Sophia's face darkened instantly. I sneered, "It has come to this, why are you still quibbling? I saw those videos with my own eyes, and I even filmed some of them myself. Sophia, are you satisfied with this?" Sophia stared at me and said the same thing as before, "David and I are just good friends." I nodded indifferently and continued, "A male best friend who can have sex with you, is not clingy and doesn't cause trouble? The guests who came to the funeral were dumbfounded. After all, it would be hard to see a second time in their lifetime to see a person who was not dead but was involved in a sex scandal at a funeral. Sophia finally couldn't hold back her anger, and a look of being exposed surfaced on her face. James, you knew I was not dead, but you still went to close my account and apply for a death certificate for me. Did you do it on purpose? Yes. I didn't care about being exposed by her. I just want you to pay the price. If you want to restore your household registration, I still need to step in. Sophia, I'll give you 2 choices. I handed over a divorce agreement. Sign it and you can continue to live. If you don't sign it, you will live as an illegal resident. Sophia was so angry that her chest heaved. She snatched the divorce agreement, turned to the column about property distribution, and slammed the agreement to the ground. Why should I leave the house with nothing? Sophia's face turned red, her eyes were bloodshot, and her expression was horrifying. I used to be afraid of seeing her angry, but now when I see her like this, I can only think of one word: strong on the outside but weak on the inside. She clearly has no bargaining chips in her hands, but she still wants to take advantage of me. I sneered and continued, just because you are an illegal resident now, just because you cheated. Sophia stared at me coldly, then suddenly laughed and continued, how did I cheat? I just spent the night with my childhood friend, we didn't do anything. Our eyes met, and I could clearly see the smugness in her eyes. Sophia said smugly, James, if I were you, I should admit my mistake to my wife right now, and promise that this mistake only happened once. As long as you admit your mistake to me, I am still willing to live a good life with you, and I will stay away from David. I pursed my lips tightly and said nothing. I was shocked by her shamelessness. After all, I didn't have any substantial evidence of her cheating. Even if I cancelled her household registration, she would definitely try every means to harass me in the future. I was about to say something when a figure stood in front of me. Does this count as evidence of cheating? Olivia said, pulling out her phone and playing a video of Sophia and David kissing in a booth. She smiled playfully and said, even though they kiss like this, they are still good friends. David on the side growled, who are you? Why are you taking pictures of us? Sophia looked at Olivia, the color on her face drained away, and her previous arrogant look instantly turned into a flattering smile. She pulled David over and covered his mouth. Aunt, why are you here too? I'm fine, it's really hard for Aunt to make this trip. Olivia said calmly, I know you are fine. I was the one who told James that you were not dead. Sophia's expression became increasingly ugly, but she still had to force a smile. Really? It's my fault this time. I scared James. I came here today to admit my mistake to him. This kind of thing won't happen again in the future. Olivia's expression didn't change. She just squatted down and picked up the divorce agreement, then took a pen from her pocket and handed it to Sophia. Sign. Sophia asked in confusion, Aunt. Olivia continued, we are not related by blood, you don't have to call me Aunt. Sign, otherwise the Olivia family will not care about you. Hearing this, Sophia finally panicked. She never mentioned the unfair distribution to me again and quickly signed her name on the last page. I breathed a sigh of relief and quickly took the divorce agreement and put it in my bag. Just as I was about to say thank you, I met Olivia's eyes. Olivia looked at me and said, James, I will accompany you to register her household registration, and then go to get the divorce certificate. I was a little surprised and subconsciously wanted to refuse. Olivia smiled and said, don't rush to refuse. What if I'm not here and she refuses to divorce? I thought about it and said, okay then. Afterwards, I said goodbye to the guests. David refused to leave and insisted on staying with Sophia, but I didn't mind. I got in Olivia's car and went to the household registration department. The staff member of the household registration department saw me and laughed. Why are you here today? Did you find Sophia? Are you here to restore her household registration? I told you that you would definitely find her. Congratulations. I nodded and didn't say anything else. When I was leaving the household registration department, Sophia stopped me and said, James, I really love you. That day at David's house, I was drunk and I mistook him for you. I turned my head and said in a cold tone, don't disgust me by saying such things. After getting the divorce certificate, I walked to the side of the road and tried to hail a taxi. Olivia drove up to me and said, where are you going? I'll take you there. I looked at her and asked meaningfully, Ms. Olivia, I have divorced Sophia. So what? So what? Olivia hooked her finger and pulled down the sunglasses on her nose, revealing a pair of squinting peach blossom eyes. She has a very charming look, with slightly upturned eyes slightly squinting, as if everything is under her control. Mr. James, I helped you get a divorce. It's not good for you to burn your bridges after crossing the river, right? There was still a hint of vigilance in my eyes. She shrugged and changed her address. Mr. James, let's talk about cooperation. Now the company is yours, I can cooperate with you without worry. I was a little tempted. Lou is a giant, and it would be beneficial for me to cooperate with her. I opened the car door, sat in the passenger seat, and continued, why do you feel comfortable cooperating only when I tell you that the company is mine? Olivia glanced at me, laughed and said, I know the worth of my adopted niece. She can earn small money, big money. She didn't finish her words, but I understood. During the years when Sophia and I started our business, she played the biggest role, but it was just the last name in front of her name that made people a little afraid. Most of the time, she was just playing around with people outside under the title of general manager. The cooperation that really determined the fate of the company was negotiated by me. Olivia looked at me and smiled and said, the contract is in my lap, you can take a look. My eyes fell on the contract at the root of her legs, and I hesitated for a moment. Ms. Olivia, can you give it to me? Olivia blushed and said, I'm driving, and I can't leave the steering wheel. I coughed uncomfortably, reached out, twisted a corner of the contract between my thumb and index finger, and quickly pulled it into my hand. All the terms in the contract were fair, but this kind of fairness was a disadvantage for Olivia. I closed the contract and said in a calm tone, Ms. Olivia, let's be frank. You offer me such a good salary. What do you need me to do? Olivia still kept her eyes on the road ahead and said in a steady voice, you need to be in charge of this project yourself. I was a little surprised, then nodded and continued, of course, for such an important cooperation, I will definitely follow up personally. As soon as she finished speaking, Olivia took out a pen and handed it to me. I remembered how she had just asked me to take the contract myself, and I was speechless for a while, but I still took the pen and wrote my name neatly. Olivia said happily, to wish our cooperation a success, I'll take you out for dinner. I didn't refuse. Since we were going to cooperate anyway, there was no reason to refuse. Olivia parked the car in front of a hot pot restaurant. I was stunned when I saw the name of the restaurant. Olivia stood behind me and asked in confusion, why are you in a daze? Don't you like hot pot? I responded with some sadness, I haven't eaten it in 4 years. I've been with Sophia for 4 years, and she can't eat spicy food, so I've never been to a hot pot restaurant again. Olivia pulled my arm and chuckled, today is to celebrate your divorce, so I'll treat you to hot pot, which you haven't had for a long time. I laughed too, and ordered a large table without hesitation. During the meal, we talked about the future cooperation matters, which was a great pleasure for both the host and the guest. After the meal, it was completely dark, and Olivia insisted on sending me home. I just got home and saw an unexpected guest at the door. Sophia was squatting at the door of the villa, shivering with cold. When she saw me, her eyes lit up and she said excitedly, James, you are back. I raised an eyebrow, not knowing what she was up to, and asked in confusion, Sophia, what are you doing at my doorstep? She trotted over and took my hand, rubbing my palm with her already cold hand, and asked aggrievedly, are you cold? It's so cold today, and you don't wear more clothes. Do you know that this will make me sad? My stomach kept churning, and I almost vomited the hot pot I had tonight because of her behavior. I pulled my hand back suddenly and yelled, what are you doing? Her eyes instantly turned red, and she said aggrievedly, I'm just worried about you, James. What will you do in the future without me? I can still bring you a coat and find a way to warm your hands. How can you take care of yourself without me? Can we remarry? I really love you. I looked into her eyes, and I could see the true feelings in them. It was true in the past. Sophia took good care of me. She would bring me an umbrella on rainy days and put more clothes on snowy days. Once upon a time, I felt that the feelings between us were irreplaceable and that we had the best love. But such a person would actually say that I am clingy, and would actually disappear to avoid me, and even cheat on me. Why? I looked into Sophia's eyes and said coldly, I wear little because I get in the car as soon as I leave home, and I arrive at the company after getting off the car. I can't feel the cold wind at all. Sophia, why should you treat me well if you say so, and disappear if you say so? Why should I remarry you now that you want to remarry? I used to love you because you were good to me, and you made me feel that you were a gentle and caring person who deserved to be loved. But later I found out that you are not, you are just a playboy, a liar, and a villain who will do anything to achieve your goals. You disappeared for 3 months for your own selfishness, kept the people who cared about you in the dark for 3 months, watched them struggle in pain, and felt so heartless, and even felt that this was not enough and wanted to make it worse. Is this what you call really loving me? It's too ridiculous. Sophia looked at me, her body trembling. She wanted to say that it was not true, but she felt that she could not refute it. I said in a cold voice, is there anything else? If not, please move aside. I want to go home. Sophia stood at the door, motionless and unwilling to speak. I was really annoyed, so I reached out to pull her, but she suddenly threw herself into my arms and cried, "James, I really know I was wrong. There is really nothing between David and me. I will stay away from him. Please, give me another chance." She held me tightly, and refused to let go no matter how hard I struggled. Until Sophia was pulled away by a strong force, Olivia's voice rang out. I lowered my head and met Olivia's clear eyes. Olivia said in a cold voice, "Sophia, I told you, if you come to bother James again, the Olivia family will no longer care about you." Sophia suddenly let go of my hand and said, "Aunt, this is a matter between us two." I laughed angrily when I heard her say this. What happened between us? Sophia, who gave you the idea to pretend to be missing? Don't tell me that you came up with this idea yourself. Do you have such a brain? You were just fooled by David. He went out with you, and you said he was your good friend. You drank together and you also said he was your good friend. You cheated on me and I also said we were good friends. Even you spent the night together and went to bed together. You also said we were good friends. Tell me, can all good friends do this with you? Sophia's face was filled with disgust. She had done something wrong, and it was fine if she didn't apologize to me, but she also used all kinds of words to excuse herself. This behavior only made me more disgusted. Olivia pushed Sophia away, who was frozen in place, and pushed me to the door. You go home and rest, I'll take her away. I nodded, entered the house, slammed the door and went into the bedroom. I don't know what Olivia and Sophia talked about, but I didn't see Sophia again for a long time. These days, I put all my energy into work. I call Olivia or meet her every day. The frequent meetings gradually reduce the awkward atmosphere between us, and sometimes we can chat like normal friends. I asked puzzledly, Olivia, what did you talk to Sophia about that night? She hasn't shown up for a long time. Olivia glanced at me, took out her phone and flipped through some photos, all of which were of David and Sophia together. She responded calmly. After learning that you would not forgive her, she resolutely threw herself into the arms of her male best friend. I flipped through the photos and saw a photo of me in college. I asked in confusion, what's going on? How did you get a photo of me? From this angle, it looks like a candid photo. Olivia froze for a moment, then snatched the phone and responded nervously, you're seeing things. I blinked and said meaningfully, since I saw it wrong, forget it. I was thinking about asking you if you want to date me, it seems I thought too much. I saw it right. Olivia took out the photo again and put it in front of me, you saw it right, I took it secretly. When you were in college, I went to your school to give a speech, and I took a photo when I saw you. She looked at me, and the friendship in her eyes was finally exposed without any disguise, and everything was self-evident. But I was married to Sophia before, so this isn't okay, right? Olivia's expression became serious. She sat closer to me and said gently, okay. Sophia is just the child adopted by my brother and sister-in-law. She made a big mistake when she was an adult and was kicked out of the Olivia family a long time ago. It's just that I sponsored her to finish college because my brother and sister-in-law have passed away. I nodded, took her hand, and said proudly, it's a 3-month probation period. Whether you can get a permanent position depends on your performance. Olivia nodded repeatedly and continued, it just so happens that today's work is done, so let's go eat hot pot. Maybe it's because I haven't eaten hot pot for 4 years, I'm almost crazy about it, I have to eat it every 2 or 3 days, I feel uncomfortable if I don't eat it. Olivia has been eating with me for a long time, but she doesn't seem to be tired of it at all. Every time she will find a different hot pot restaurant to take me to taste the flavor. Today is the same, I just found a good one, I'll take you there. Just as I walked out of the company door, a figure knelt down in front of me and cried, James, please go find Sophia. She has been missing for 3 days and I can't find her. David's eyes were bloodshot and he kept kowtowing and begging me to find Sophia. I frowned, quickly dodged, and shouted, David, get up first and tell me what happened to Sophia. David looked very old and panicked. He said anxiously, Sophia insisted on going skiing, and I couldn't persuade her, so I went with her. But she disappeared in the same place where she pretended to disappear last time. I searched for her for 3 days and couldn't find her. I have run out of money. Please, go find her. I pursed my lips and said seriously, David, have you ever thought that this disappearance was also a lie she lied to you about? He shook his head repeatedly and said with certainty in his tone, no, Sophia would never lie to me. I sighed, let go of Olivia's hand, and said to her, I've been there several times. I'll go look for it with David. Olivia's eyes were dangerous. She stared at me and asked in confusion, you still can't let her go? How is that possible? Then I whispered in her ear, I'm sure she's pretending again. If you have time, you can go with me. Olivia bought 3 tickets without hesitation and said calmly, I'll go with you. I contacted the search and rescue team again. The big brothers in the search and rescue team already knew me. When they saw me, they all sighed and said, "Mr. James, we already said we can't find him. It's been such a long time, so we definitely can't find him." I nodded perfunctorily and continued, "It's okay to just pretend. The person is not missing at all. Just look for him. I'll give you the money anyway." The search and rescue team searched for 3 days but couldn't find even a hair of Sophia. David was on the verge of collapse. I looked at him like this without a trace of sympathy. It was because of his idea that I endured 3 months of pain and lost all hope. Now it's his turn. Can he not bear it after just a few days? On the 4th night, Sophia suddenly appeared. She rushed over to hug me and said with a choked voice, "James, I knew you still loved me, otherwise you wouldn't have heard that I was missing and came all the way to look for me for 3 days and 3 nights. I really know I was wrong. It was David who came up with the bad idea. Now I can't let him find me. It's just that you shouldn't have come, so that I could hide for a longer time and let him feel your pain. But I'm happier that you're here." As soon as she finished speaking, she was pulled down by Olivia. "Sophia, stay away from my boyfriend." Sophia fell to the ground, her eyes widened as she watched me hold Olivia in my arms. "What do you mean your boyfriend? James is my husband. Aunt, you are my aunt." Olivia stared at her condescendingly, sneered, and continued, "Have you forgotten that you are just an adopted daughter who was kicked out of the Olivia family?" Sophia got up and rushed towards Olivia. I opened my arms to block Olivia. Sophia yelled loudly, "James, get out of the way. I'm going to tear this vixen apart." I looked towards the corner and said calmly, "Come out." David came out with tears on his face. He stared at Sophia, and the love in his eyes was gone. I said in a cold voice, "Sophia, you keep playing with the people who care about you. Is that fun? Watching us collapse again and again, you are happy, right? If David hadn't begged me, I wouldn't even look back even if you really died." Sophia's face was full of pain. She looked at my lips and stammered, "He went to beg you. So you didn't come here because you were worried about me. You came because such a bitch begged you?" I was furious when I heard her words. I slapped her and said angrily, "You are such a scumbag. No matter how bad David is, he loves you sincerely. Why do you have to slander him like this?" I looked at David and said calmly, "You two should solve yourselves. Don't appear in front of me again. I get annoyed when I see you." After that, I took Olivia back to the hotel. In the days that followed, the relationship between Olivia and I heated up rapidly. Olivia seemed to be in a hurry. She got the marriage certificate on the 1st anniversary of our relationship, and then she prepared for the wedding without stopping. She did everything herself. I didn't know that I was getting married until I tried on clothes. Olivia invited Sophia and David to the wedding. Only then did I know what happened after the two of them were left to confront each other on the snowy mountain. David turned his love into hatred, and after the confrontation with Sophia, he became angry and pushed her off the cliff. Now, Sophia really broke several bones as she lied, and needs to be in a wheelchair for the rest of her life. David has been taking care of Sophia, but he made Sophia thinner and more haggard every day. These two people tortured each other for their whole lives. My eyes were fixed on Sophia's legs, and Olivia forcefully turned my face over and gave me a fierce kiss, then said coyly, "What are you looking at?" "I'm jealous." I smiled with my eyes curved, kissed her back, and said affectionately, "Don't be jealous, you are in my eyes and heart."